We are Insight Lab 5, and that is not number 5, that is 5 stars. So when you're on the app later, just remember that. Before we start talking about local search today, I want to take a second to quantify this for you. So the number of local searches that are happening every minute in the United States would fill 14.6 Superdomes. That's over 75,000 queries with local intent that are happening in every minute.
And if that doesn't convince you that local search is important, let's take that scale out a little bit. Mardi Gras has roughly 1.4 million attendees every single year. 1.4 million revelers. You take that times 48 years of revelry, and you have 1 hour of local search queries in the US. Hopefully we've convinced you that local search is important. I'm PJ Fosco, Regional Director of Owned Media for iProspect.
And I'm Jessie, Dearien, Regional Director of Paid Search. And we're going to talk to you today about local search specifically and how we as brands can really capitalize on the power of it. We'll start by talking through some artificial barriers to success. So you just heard the numbers, but what's interesting is that even though consumers are interacting with search engines in this way, brands have not yet all caught up and are not fully investing in harnessing and capitalizing on the power of this type of query. We'll also talk about the specific elements of local search that everyone should be aware of. We'll talk through some paid search and natural search wins that we've seen and the tactical opportunities that you have within the search space. And we'll end on obviously the way forward. What can you do walking out of the room today to be most successful within local search? So, those artificial barriers. As I mentioned, the adoption rate and the integration of local search into a search marketing program is relatively low considering the volume that we're seeing in it. And what we did as part of getting ready for this lab was talk to different teams and understand what the barriers to success were here. And we came up with 3 common themes. The first one being a structural separation within the shaking your head, within the advertisers' teams between e-com and stores.
That's right, and even if it wasn't e-commerce and stores, then we're usually dealing with someone who is managing locators, like for ATMs or other non-storefront functions, with the same marketing goals as brand, but yet they weren't talking to each other.
A second thing that we see is ineffectively measuring local. So we as direct response marketers are very comfortable with an online ROI, but when somebody is searching for something near me, they are probably not going to convert online. It doesn't mean every time, and it may be something that down the line they convert online, but right now they're just trying to interact with your brand in a different type of way. And not being able to effectively measure that and also get buy-in across the business of the data points that we do have can actually slow the investment in this space. And finally, trying to do local as a standalone channel. Local search is not a channel. Local search is a consumer behavior, and it's a really critical one so that we can capitalize on the now moment of the user, what they're looking for, and give them a relevant response. So the elements of local search, obviously you have your store footprint or your location footprint and all the data that's involved in that. And then you also know the user and where the user is and the distance from the location that we've talked about, and what that means about their propensity to purchase or the next step in the journey that they're trying to take. And most importantly, it's another layer of intent from the consumer that we can use to understand how to create the most relevant and effective marketing message. Now I'm going to take you through 2 quick examples. The example that we have up here is bars near me. Yes, do you have a question, sir?
I'll wait till later.
Okay, that's great. Bars near me. Now, right now I could really use a bar, and this would definitely be something I would type into the search query, but I did this search in the Fort Worth office. So for my Fort Worth people, can you please confirm that the Reservoir is the closest bar to the office?
Yes. In the mornings, in the mornings, we drive to the office. Well, and the feeds team actually has a refrigerator in there.
That's true too.
Okay, so besides the office kitchen, great. Now this,
So
I do want to be clear.
The day drinkers are here. We
The
should
day
have
drinkers are
qualified.
here. I do want to be clear that this is in no way representative of the number of bars that are near our office. There are at least 18 more within 2 blocks. That's how we do it in Texas. But this is a pretty simple query to answer, and Google has really nailed it. And you're actually right, the local is 384 feet versus 405 feet. BTA for the win. But take this query, roadside assistance. So if somebody is searching for roadside assistance on a desktop computer, they're probably looking to compare options, maybe read consumer reviews, sign up for a plan that will protect them when they have an issue. If someone's searching for roadside assistance at 3 in the morning and it's pouring down rain, they don't want to compare options. They want to call you and they want you to rescue them. So being there in this moment, in this case AAA1, being the first person that they would call in this moment gives you that valuable consumer interaction point that we get and can garner from local search.
That's right. It's all about intent. It doesn't matter if it's paid or organic. Intent is critical to getting local search right. What we've got here is a screenshot from Answer the Public. It's a free tool. You can go there. It'll be a creepy old dude staring back at you, but know that you're in the right spot. It's a very cool tool. And what this does is it takes Google information on Google Suggest. So Google, being an answer engine, already knows the next question you're going to ask, and it clusters it together around who, what, when, where, how, and why. And why is that important? Because we want to help you create content to answer these questions because people are looking for it right now. It's particularly important for local because local search is mobile. Mobile search is voice, and to understand the intent of the user is critical because you can take them and deliver up juicy content any time of the day.
And from a paid perspective, we are seeing the proliferation of local-based ad formats and local-based response. As a matter of fact, 23% of commercial queries have 4-pack ads. And the example that we have here is the search query hotels in New Orleans. We have our standard text ads response here. And then below this, we have a map-based ad format and the ability to actually see the location of the hotel and also a standard rate. And the way this ad format works is you can actually put in additional details. You can put in your check-in date. It will tell you your rate, take you directly to the location or to the hotel that you're wanting to purchase and get you that much closer to a conversion with the brand. Now, this has been very, very successful for the hospitality vertical, but we are also starting to see it roll out for additional verticals based on success, which I will talk about a little bit later.
That's right, and this study is produced by Bright Edge. If anybody wants to see it, we can refer to it too. So generally speaking, you got 25% of your local search queries taking place. You got an ad 4-pack on top of that. Why does organic care about that? Because that's transactional. Google talks about those want to go, I want to know, I want to do, I want to buy micro moments all the time, right? Well, that's buy. When we're talking about the other 75% of the queries, you know, the go, the no, the do, then you're counting on organic search results to have the answer there in the engines. Now what we found with this Bright Edge study too is once we understood the intent of the queries, once we considered what it meant to the user, we actually got a 69% better click-through rate with organic results on the small screen in a mobile search over paid. And that's something you can take to the bank for local search. As if that wasn't enough, we understand a lot about local search, and we probably shouldn't stop talking about it and maybe prove it. Do you think we should prove it? Okay, let's prove it. And anybody in the room a really good texter? You know, can they do a Google search query for me real quickly?
There's an iProspect cup up for grabs. Hey, this girl.
Right here?
Yeah.
Right here? Great.
She's ready.
It's a rather long query, so I'm going to give it to you. Let me know when you're ready. Okay. Getting local search right in New Orleans. Now, the reason why she has to type all of that in and can't do a voice search is because Google is only so far with understanding the context of the query. Yes, my friend Google, I know, because Google would interpret this as right, W-R-I-T-E, rather than R-I-G-H-T, and that's why we have to type it in. When you get the other 4 9s there, we'll be all set. What's the first result? The first organic result.
Getting local search right from the iProspect blog.
Imagine that! What?
PJ also played a little trick on me. If you search for SEO rules and PPC drools in New Orleans, that same blog post will show up.
We have our fun. Come on. It's geekery. You got to give us something. All right. So we know how to build content to get found in the top position. We understand that piece of it. If you make it relevant, Google will help you out there. However, we also know a few things about Google My Business. And this is the other side of the coin for local, right? If you're going to get local organic search right, you got to take care of Google My Business. You have to be able to execute on all the fundamentals, which are pretty straightforward overall. I mean, you get Google My Business right, you update it regularly, you incorporate user reviews, so you're getting your stars and keeping your content fresh, and you incorporate every little bit of schema behind the page to help Google understand the context of the information for the location. And that's how you start to win in Google My Business. If only it were that easy, right? So, the cool thing about organic search is that you've got the constancy of getting articles and content ranked well, but then you come to locators and all bets are off because the changes are dramatic. We had over 30 different updates to the Google My Business content, from filters to attributes to API updates last year alone. 30 updates. Now, hey, that's not a big deal if you've got 5 stores. 50,000, all bets are off. That's where it has to scale. That's why important. That's the importance of feeds, Adam. That's why you've got to get your local feeds right. In order to make local search work, you got to broadcast, and you have to broadcast on a scale that can worm its way through the labyrinth of local search aggregators. Once you do that, you are getting local search right on all fronts for organics. That's all. All right, so we've got the constancy of search engine optimization for general search results. We've got locator. What we've got here is another new advantage that we'd like to take advantage of in machine learning. With RankBrain machine learning, augmented information, Google's always learning about the most relevant results, and it's changing every second that we're thinking and talking right here, right now, which is really cool. But it's also relatively predictable, and that's the beauty of machine learning, is it can be predictable. If I were to break machine learning down to its simplest elements of artificial intelligence, basically you work on vectors and clusters, right? Vectors are crossing points of information that we can organize around, and clusters is that big bag that you dip into to pull out an answer. Very simply overstated. But those are vectors and clusters, and that's the fundamental underpinnings of machine learning. So we did a little test with a client of ours, Massage Envy. Some of you might be familiar with it. Massage Envy is a national wellness organization. They operate in all 49 states. They serve some 1.65 million members, and they've got over 1,100 franchisees. So local search is kind of important to them. All right, so here's our test and what we did. We took the fundamental underpinnings of machine learning and its predictability, and we took some very prime real estate. We took the title tag, and we removed the brand. Oh, we did. Because Google was kind enough, of course, to cluster the information together and put the brand back in for us. But because we had that free real estate, we actually incorporated a few more keywords into our targeting, and we expanded our referral base, that big bag of referrals coming in, to any single page by 18 to 40%. And that's some pretty serious growth on a per page level. And that's the fun of local search. We also accidentally improved our click-through rates by 17% when we removed the brand, even though we had a 3-pack above it in most instances. So that one surprised us. But this is why it's so important to get local search right and take advantage of new opportunities and test them and see how they work for your organization.
So from a paid perspective, there's a lot of opportunities within local search as well. And it's not just about radius targeting or having a geo-based approach. It's really about being consumer first in every single element of the SERP and in your search response that you are creating. So it's understanding what we know about the consumer, the elements of their declared intent, what they're telling you, what we know about them as a consumer, and creating the best message and the best options for them to respond and interact with your brand. Now, Google has helped us in a lot of ways from a paid perspective as it relates to local search. So it's not just about your basic text ad anymore. There are a lot of new options for brands to explore to capitalize on the power and value of local. This is just a sampling of them. There's been a number, and as I mentioned, the proliferation of queries with local intent has been such that Google has capitalized on this with a number of new and different ad formats. The first one I'm going to talk about is local inventory ads. So this is actually a version of PLAs where you can marry your PLA data with your in-store inventory data and not only give the online option for purchase, but also the in-store option for purchase. So this individual had the choice between online and offline. And what we saw as a result was actually a 6.5% in-store visit rate from this. When you compare that to your online conversion rate, that's pretty stinking good. Now, what's most important about all of the advertisers that we have launched LAAs with, we have actually not seen a dip in online ROI from running LIAs. We continue to see the online success of the PLA product, but we are supplementing that with an additional option within the SERP. Another option that has come up recently is promoted places, the ability to stand out specifically within a map. There's not a ton of data on this yet because it's an alpha, and Google doesn't often release tracking for alphas, but MAC Cosmetics did see 300,000 impressions from this at a relatively low cost to them. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, the 4-pack of ads from a hospitality perspective has been really, really successful. And we're starting to see this roll out to other verticals such as retail. The example you see here is auto. So you see an ad for Land Rover Toronto that shows up above the other relevant search results. So the ability to pay to play and to get your ad to show up first in that relevant local search response perspective. Now, I want to talk for a second about a brand that's done a really good job of developing an omni-channel presence, about mixing the lines between online and offline and being really effective with their marketing budget. And that is Staples. So you know Staples sells online and sells offline. They have a huge offline footprint and they have a significant catalog of inventory. They also have a unique challenge in that some of their categories that they sell at Staples may have a higher propensity to sell offline versus online. They still have some categories that sit there, and they also have some categories that you can only convert offline. So for example, their copy and print business. You actually have to go into a location to take advantage of that service at some point in that journey. So what they did was they did 3 key things, had 3 key initiatives to help support in this omni-channel presence and in capitalizing on local search. We talked about LAAs on the last screen. We talked about that 6.5% in-store conversion rate, but what's really cool is that that's 48% higher than standard PLAs. So this stuff works. And I will say getting a local inventory feed for a company like Staples is no small feat, but they have absolutely seen the value of this, and it's continuing to drive those business results they're looking for. Second, from their non-brand search approach, they actually added near me terms into their query list. And from this, they saw a 5 times higher in-store visit rate from these type of terms than other standard non-brand terms. And finally, for those categories that either can only convert offline or have a higher propensity offline, they shifted their entire optimization strategy to go after a cost per store visit, so that they could really harness that very coveted foot traffic and optimize to a metric that gets them the lowest cost visit as possible. Now, what you might be asking yourself, and you might be looking at here saying, is there is no online ROI up here at all. Ah! As digital response marketers, that can be hard to swallow, but what Staples and the iProspect team worked collaboratively to do was to identify the right supplemental metric to look at and use for these local queries, and that is Google's in-store visits metric. So Google has done a tremendous job in giving us valuable data that we can optimize against. What in-store visits does is it marries a user who has searched for your product and is a signed-in Google user, so they have the device ID, with someone who also has location services enabled. So you know they've clicked on your ad and they've gone into your store. And they extrapolate that data out based on the number of people that are signed up for that versus not. However, the number of people that fall into that bucket is surprisingly high. And trust me when I say that we've challenged Google on this. We have absolutely said these numbers are made up, but they're not. We have gone back and forth. We understand the data science behind it, and I'm happy to provide additional follow-up on that. But trust me when I say that this is a valid data point. And even Staples' entire organization has bought into this as a metric for success for their program. I think that goes to show just how powerful that metric can be and the value that we can add to the omni-channel presence of a business.
And that is the true value add of local search. But to get there, we need your help, right? We need everybody at the table, because right now you're counting the click, you're counting the click, you're counting the click. It's all the same click and we're all getting bonused on it. And we need to change that paradigm. To do that, we need to be invited to the table to have the local conversation. We need to talk to those stakeholders, and we need your help to get there. We don't have to do your paid search and your organic search. We can work with any agency to make sure we're asking the right questions and helping you get local search right.
Yeah. Woo! Let's get drunk! Yeah! Any questions? Mark? Or are you bored now?
No, absolutely not. In regards to the bar, I wanted to ask, what drinks do they serve?
Reservoir?
Yes.
Really trashy drinks.
Food?
Reservoir does have like bar food. Yeah, they do. Mostly frozen. Mostly of the.
People wear at a party in this.
95. Actually, there was a bar fight there that involved one guy ripping another guy's jaw off. That's the kind of people that go to that bar.
There was also
I went like one time. One time. There was a hit and run outside of that bar. Y'all, we are in a great office location.
All right, so we didn't talk about Yelp.
For the in-store visits, something that we've gone back and forth with Google on, because the numbers are so good, is what's the look-back window. So I've been getting a lot of conflicting information depending on who I talk to.
Yep.
Google says that it's a 30-day look-back window and that they can't change it. And then I hear from other people at iProspect that it can be changed, but then we actually can't get it changed. So
Got it.
What's the deal with the look-back window?
Yep, it's a great point. So my assumption there is that it's probably something that we have talked with Google about and that they have on the roadmap to switch out, but right now it's not configurable. But we do continue to have the conversations with the Google team so that we can create something that shows the right value and displays the right value for you. So I will follow up on that and see where it sits on the roadmap, but right now it's not configurable.
Right, it's all data storage, so if you work it into your tech stack on the back end, you can actually download it, aggregate it, and play with it to your heart's content.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm the geek in the room.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any recommendations for brands that are sold in department stores that have access to this type of data, but again, you know, just because someone is searching for Clinique or Mac doesn't necessarily mean that they're going into Bloomingdale's to purchase those.
Right.
So just curious if you have any thoughts around how you can safeguard that to get those numbers like scrub it out or clean it up a little bit.
In terms of what they've actually purchased when they go in store?
In terms of just being able to like quantify that and like give it a little more value, because to give you some background, we looked at some data. I mean, it was during holiday season, so obviously everyone and their mother was going into department stores regardless of what they're searching. So
Yep.
the numbers looked really good, like too good. Like we know that it wasn't real. So just curious if you have any ideas for like workarounds for that.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a really good question. I think it comes down to Pixel and some really specialized offers. But, you know, that's from an organic perspective. From a paid perspective, I'm sure you can come up with something, Jess.
Yeah, I mean, I think the situation here with the data is that
Pressure's
a lot
on.
of things, and you saw on that last slide, to align on not perfect, a good measurement strategy, there's always going to be those outliers that add to it. And so I don't have necessarily a specific recommendation, but I think that's one of those things that has to be taken into consideration, and that we unfortunately have to be uncomfortable with the data not being perfect, but that it can show directionally where there is value. If there is a specific functionality of the tool that you're wanting to capitalize on, let's talk about it, because we can certainly go back to the Google team from an evolution perspective and see if it's something that they want to add to the technology. Specifically around what they are buying, there is a tool that Google has on the back end to match credit card data back. So you can get there. So let's...
There's a store sales direct program. We're about to launch it with Mac. So that will help with the purchase.
We're out of time.
The consumer who's going into browse, like that's important to us too.
Yep.
And it's just so challenging because so many of our brands don't have their own stores.
Yep.
But we also know that, you know, we don't know what the conversion rate of someone who searches for Clinique comes to our website and then goes into Nordstrom.
Right.
How many percentages of those people actually make it to the Clinique counter?
Right.
And unfortunately, we don't get so much data from our
These are the questions we'd like to be asked, because these are the kind of solutions we want to hunt down for you.